Hi, everyone, and welcome to AB Conversations, where we will help you CFP your way out of it. A podcast where you get into the minds of a couple certified financial planners on how we think and feel about everyday financial planning questions and what should really matter most to you. A healthier financial life starts now.
Hello there. Hey, how you doing?
It's Friday. I'm great.
Again, you're just pulling the curtain back, letting people know when we record these things.
Yes, it's Friday at 10:36.
Early enough.
That's right.
All right. So today, we started out with a topic of the certainty of uncertainty. And then the more we kind of talked about that in preparation for today was it kind of morphed a little bit into, financial planning. How does that apply? We have these conversations trying to plan for the certainty of uncertainty and just what that means to us from a planning perspective. We talked a little bit about, the math side of financial planning being kind of the typical thought of what we do when we now try to educate that it really is more of the conversations. Let's walk through all these different scenarios, the math we will have in our back pocket to help facilitate what that actual advice is. But having that conversation is really kind of the key.
Yeah, I think it is kind of like a misconception that financial planning is just a bunch of math, right? How much do I have to save? What are my expenses? Calculate projections. And yeah, I mean, we like to think we can kick butt with a, HP 12C financial calculator and a couple spreadsheets, but planning is far more about considering different scenarios. Like we use that a lot. We are planning for different scenarios because the reality is like no one knows what the future brings. We have to make we'll say reasonable, but we have to make assumptions on how things will go, right? The only sure things in life are taxes and dying. So, let's use that as a launching off point. I think the trouble is most people in our experience, this is where I'd like maybe your take. Most people instinctively probably avoid those conversations about uncertainty, right? Because the conversation kind of morphs from things that like feel like they're known and comfortable and quantifiable, right? Math into things that you hope aren't even likely. Right?
Yeah. Yes. We would love for all of the conversations to be, what do I need to do to buy a vacation home? And, what do I need to do to buy that boat? But it really is maybe not necessarily uncomfortable, but it's the downer conversations of, God forbid, what happens if I pass away prematurely, or I can't go to work tomorrow because I'm disabled? What happens if I lose my job? It's those conversations that I don't think people really we know they don't look forward to, and they're not always the easiest conversations. But what we've found is having those conversations in advance allows you to set a plan that if something should occur, you at least have some of your options laid out, that in that time, again, God forbid something happens, that's a stressful time, that you at least have some course of action, or at least a plan to fall back to.
Yeah, because yes, of course, there's certain things in life, myself included, right? We probably try to kid ourselves into thinking that they just won't happen, maybe because they're not statistically likely. But yeah, you mentioned some of the worst, but it can be, right, that car accident. It can be, I was furloughed from work in the middle of a pandemic for a couple weeks, right? It doesn't have to be the God forbid. But right, we can't kid ourselves into this Superman complex that says, I'm just going to avoid talking about it, and therefore it won't happen. Well, that's not the way that life goes. But I would take that one step further, and I think we're experiencing this a little bit more frequently too. I know how I am, but trying to deny that difficult situations won't happen probably leads to discomfort and stress, right? I see this so often, even with some family and friends. When big decisions need to be made, that lack of preparation can turn into fear of the unknown that leads to worry about the worry. It's not healthy. So I think we need to do, a good job bringing to the forefront in this conversation that financial planning isn't just math. It's accepting the certainty of uncertainty and then having tough conversations. It is not only to prepare, as you said, and have a plan for those if they happen, but it's to give you a healthier mental framework that if these things do happen, you haven't avoided it. You haven't stressed yourself out. You now have some options.
Yeah, and so just to build off of that part, we often see in different scenarios where if you're able to plan in advance, or at least have the conversation in advance, you can retain some of that flexibility or some of those options by planning in advance. Where you go down that road of, I'm just going to ignore it and hope it never happens, and then if it does, oftentimes once something has happened and you haven't planned for it, that flexibility and those multiple options usually are not there, and you're kind of just stuck now dealing with it from a reactionary standpoint, and that usually is a lot tougher.
Yeah, I mean, so let's use some examples. Have you ever gotten a phone call, the unfortunate phone call, when someone has to call and say their spouse passed away, and they go, I'm so angry that we talked about life insurance and that I have this death benefit coming to me?
Right.
It takes an emotional travesty, and sometimes make sure that because you had that conversation, it didn't turn into a financial travesty. And it can be the same way with, okay, I'm furloughed from work. This stinks. This is a crappy situation. But by the way, you've got 6 to 12 months of your paychecks sitting in a cash reserve to carry you through, right? Don't let this emotional travesty become a financial one. So I just think it's so important to not only planning process, but to mental health, to know that you are prepared for the worst and hoping for the best.
Oh yeah, there's absolutely, the peace of mind that we hope someone would get from that. Again, even thinking about it from that negative standpoint of the bad what ifs, but just knowing that if something like that should occur, that you at least have, again, that plan to go into it to make the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, and let's maybe move from the bad situations to accepting the certainty of uncertainty in the good situations too, right? I don't know what's going to happen with the election, so I'll sell everything, right? We've talked about not doing that, but then, take that same frame of mind. I don't know what I'm going to do with my time when I retire, so I'll just keep working in a job that's not good for me anymore. Like that's not a good way to go about it either. So accept the fact that you can't know what this next phase of life will bring you, but let's talk about scenario planning, right? Let's do this modeling to go, well, what kind of income should I still make to fill the gap? What if I take Social Security early versus waiting? What if I do this with my pension? What if I do this, right? That scenario planning, even though it's uncertain variables, does give you the ability to kind of see how the end result may look and go, well, I know I don't want to go down that path then. So you're funneling down your options. And I think that's a really healthy way to go about things too.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great point. And it does speak to the way that we approach financial planning, again, is the conversational side of things. And that certainly doesn't have to be the negative to your comment there. It is really just providing the space to figure out, to your point, what paths do I know I don't want to go down as an option, but then I have these other ones over here that do feel okay. And you start to narrow down what is comfortable. And again, it's peace of mind knowing that you've had that conversation, you have some thought of what's coming down the road or where you want to go. And I think I would hope that's a powerful tool.
Yeah, I think that preparation, to your point, I want to think of that as the ability to ensure that your values are literally put into action when life throws you that curveball, right? That your rational brain is still accessed and you're not making some kind of ill-conceived, emotionally driven decision that may not be what's best for you. So I think you hit on my points. Is there anything else you kind of had on the certainty of uncertainty?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So then here's what I heard, right? Here are the main points. We need to prepare for things, right? Even if that means talking about uncomfortable situations, because preparing for life's, got to make sure I say it right, preparing for life's predictably unpredictable outcomes, right? Not only is it minimizing stress, hopefully, and the damage that can cause, but it does keep you and your values kind of aligned if something does come your way that you weren't looking to see happen. And to your point, it gives you options, right? You have prepared for different scenarios so that when that comes, you know, the risks of it turning from an emotional travesty into a financial one kind of go down, right? So as planners, you know, we'd say that is far more, you know, what financial planning is all about, scenario planning, even if it's accepting the certainty of uncertainty than it is about the math.
Yep. Well said.
All right, man. Thanks again.
All right. See you next time.
We'll see you around.
Hey everyone, Adam and I really appreciate you tuning in. Please note that the opinions we voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be most appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, your accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to making any decisions or investing. Thanks for listening.